Everyone is losing their minds over the Falcons crowd cheating, and I'm here to tell you why they're all wrong and why I have the only correct take, okay? Listen to me, don't worry, Hawker's got your back. Let's start by showing the incident, okay? Let's start by showing it.
Distance is going to do some damage. I don't think even a bomb plant here is going to be recoverable, so 6-5.
That's the first wiggle. He's obviously looking for info.
Maybe a chance to tie it up at a 6-6 scoreline.
That's the wiggle that allows him to spam the smoke.
We're going to find out in a couple of seconds here.
Oh, there's absolutely a chance. They're going to get $2,400 into the next round. That means, Anders, there's no chance of the AWP for Molodoi.
Don't forget, guys, they'll turn off the X-ray if you go too far with it.
Hey, guys, you got to chill.
And that's how the round ends. Okay, first and foremost, I can't believe I have to say this, but obviously this shit sucks. No one wants to see this. Okay, this, like, the crowd here are just being so annoying, and literally no one wants to see this. And by the way, if you're in that crowd and you want Falcons to win and you like their players, you shouldn't like this either, because you should want them to win based off the legitimacy of their play and their ability as a team. You should not want them to win off this bullshit. No one's going to like that. That doesn't feel good for anyone, does it? If anything, even Falcons players would probably tell you, if they won off of this, they'd be like, I guess I'm happy I won, but also, like, it's a shitty way to win. They'd say that themselves, okay? No one's disputing that. Where people are going off the rails, in my opinion, is with the reactions to it, okay? Here we're getting into the comments, right? Firstly, why don't they disable the X-ray? That's something we will get into, and it's absolutely something that they'd go ahead and do. They lost the game after the X-ray off. Yes, they do turn the X-ray off. Circling out if they're there is insane. It wasn't just that round. They kept doing it until they turned off the X-ray. That was the moment it became malicious. But in that moment, he knows what he's doing. Okay, I hear you. Does Rain know what he's doing when he does it here then? Does Ray know what he's doing then? You know, 7 months ago, right? I would say so. But in this case, right, we're getting all the cheating. We're getting the penalization, straight up cheating. Okay, interesting. Interesting that's the take, because this is the perfect one for it, okay? The top comment on this post, 7 months ago when Rain does it, oh, there's a lot of tricks you can do on LAN. Yeah, there's a lot of cool tricks. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's cheeky. Oh, that's so devious. And then this guy replies saying, it doesn't sound like a trick. Maybe it's a cheat. Bro got downvoted to fuck. Bro got downvoted out of oblivion, man. This guy, this poor guy, if he just waited 7 months, he'd have got all the upvotes, okay? And that's the other thing. I've seen people say, oh, well, you know, it used to be more accepted, but now it's not. This was 7 months ago, man. Right? LANs from 20 years ago are now going to be cancelled. This guy jokes. There's always going to be a difference at a LAN. You can't really enforce any rules unless you want to completely isolate the crowd. Go back to Valorant. And then this guy says, he even says, the problem is he's intentionally using the crowd by shaking the crosshair multiple times. Even a player who's not in the crowd know what it means. It's a gesture, make noise if someone's here. And this guy replies saying, I get it, but you can't 100% prove that's the reaction. And everyone's with this guy. Okay, but suddenly, now that it's Falcons, and now that it's like obviously more blatant and annoying because it's happening in every single round, suddenly the energy completely turns. And apparently this has always been cheating, and that's what everyone thinks, right? Interesting, interesting. Now also, there are a lot of posts saying, crowd cheating's out of control. I've never seen it this bad. Just disable X-ray already, which again, I agree with and we'll get to. They turned off X-ray, good. This guy is clearly abusing it proactively. They still need to cheat. A lot of people calling it cheating. Worst crowd I've ever seen. The most blatant shit I've ever seen. And again, I agree. And I think this is so dumb. And we obviously need to promote crowds not doing this. And in my opinion, the way to do that is you tell people before the games not to do this. And the most vocal people that start doing this, you chuck them out. And you show the crowd that you are chucking them out. Trust me when I tell you, people will switch up real quick. If they see people started getting thrown out around them, if you make a big deal out of that and you go on stage and say, hey, look at these guys, they're getting thrown out, I think people will change up, okay? Observers should be showing Fury at POV. This is also something we'll get into. I think the fact that this wasn't as big of a tournament organizer affects things slightly. They might not have all the top observers who often do this sort of thing. But back to the main point, crowd cheating's out of control. I've never seen it this bad. How about the Rio Major 2022? Whole article here about it, including some historic moments, which we'll look at later, by the way. But Vinny admits in a post-match interview in this clip that this turnaround from Fulham was actually because the crowd started making noise, that there was a flank coming. Fulham there only gets that kill because he turns around. I'll show it again. It was because of the crowd noise that he gets that kill in a key round. Poor Sadek is commentating, saying, how did he know he turned it around? By the way, I don't know how Zaiwu got away with that. Absolute madness. Absolute madness. But you see, Vinny literally says there was one instance where the crowd reaction made them check their flank and they got a kill. Okay? So this isn't like that egregious. And by the way, you want the best clip? This is the best clip ever in Counter-Strike for this. Okay? The South American fans trying to support 0-0 Nation.
And Try does not know. Now he has to start considering alternative angles, flanks, heaven, anything is open. He is precarious behind the pillar. Right angle.
Like, they are literally just yelling when he's looking the right way and booing when he's looking the wrong way. Like, that honestly might actually be more egregious because this is a round in the game that actually matters, right? Like, this is a round in the game that is important. It's an important gun round where if they win it, they've got a chance to get back in the game a bit. This round, it's not even one that is even that, like, important, right? When we think about it. And here's the other thing I want to point out, right? Because I know a lot of people seem to be getting annoyed because Kicksound was smirking afterwards because he's so devious and he knew he was cheating. Or maybe it's just that he knows he's against 3 fucking Glocks and he's having a bit of fun, right? Could it maybe be that in this round?
Definitely changing now. 5th round looks like it's more or less locked in already.
Fury has stolen the please.
I don't know, I'm just skipping around all over the place. I'm trying my best, guys. Without making any cheat, of course. I think I've just skipped back to the exact moment I was at, so that's good. But here we go.
Together, guys, they'll turn off the X-ray if you go too far with it.
Guys, you gotta chill.
Fine, we can pass without the X-ray if need be. Kyusuke takes down Yuri. They only really lose a single player, which is all good. Okay, it's
There's a little grid. Listen, to me, this is like the same vibe as when you're knowing you're against an eco round and you make some dumbass play and you're just like laughing it off because you're like lightening the mood of the team, right? Like, that can absolutely be a viable explanation here. But apparently, no, he's just laughing because he's like, haha, the crowd's cheating for us, you know? Like, no, not necessarily, okay? So what can you do about this in reality, okay? Because I do want to get into that. And again, I just wanted to point out, like, the main thing is, if you think that, like, cheating like this in this sort of round, or, like, wiggling about like this in this sort of round is, like, a massive deal, when they literally know they're against Glocks, and they have a 100% chance of winning this round, you need to calm down. This, if anything, this is, like, one of the least egregious examples, because who really cares? This round is already done. The outcome is already over. Kicksan already got kills on Ivy, by the way, so he knew they were coming his way. Right? Because, like, he saw that he got the kill on the Deeg, and he knew that there were players coming. Like, it's really not a big deal. It's really not a big deal in this round specifically, but this is the one that got pointed out. Okay, what can you do? Well, when ESL had to do this, they realized when some of these instances were happening that, yeah, you kind of just have to turn off the X-ray and turn off the radar in the arena, right? I think this is the other thing that people maybe didn't understand is that a lot of the top tournament organizers, they already do a lot to do this, right? A lot of the top tournament organizers, they make sure to turn off the X-ray and they turn off the radar sometimes. But the way they do this is they only do it for the arena. And I think because Fisher maybe haven't run as many big tournaments, they haven't quite, like, got that available to them, right? They probably don't have as big of a production team. They're not quite as experienced, maybe. And so that's totally understandable, right? Like, they might not have been aware that this was going to be an issue, right? That totally makes sense. So I think that's one thing, is that top tournament organizers already do this quite a lot and have to do this quite a lot of the time. That's the first thing you can do. The second thing is, as I was saying, strongly discourage the crowd from doing this. Actively throw out people who are doing this, and start to make it clear to the crowds in Counter-Strike on the whole that this is something that will not be tolerated. This is something that will not be stood for, okay? We need to create that culture in Counter-Strike, and it is possible to do this because look at something like tennis, right? They have like thousands of people in a stadium who all are completely quiet, right, while the match is going on, like while the point is being played, right? I know actually recently there was like an example with someone at Wimbledon like popping their champagne bottle as a point was about to start and it like went onto the court and everyone's sitting there like, what on earth is going on? Because that's just terrible etiquette, right? So that's something I think is possible. I think it might be harder to do in a generation of like gamers who maybe you don't have the same levels of like etiquette built up. You maybe don't have the same level of everyone being as like socially aware all of the time, right? Some people might just not fully understand that, or that they might just not be as used to that, right? Like that's definitely a real thing. Don't get me wrong. That can be the case sometimes. I'm not saying for all of them, by the way. It's probably normally just a small amount of people that are going to be like that. But still, I think it's maybe a little more likely in the gaming context, right? But they did indeed turn off the X-ray. You can see in the next round.
Just waiting on the other side. Two people on the B.
And this is the other thing. I think especially in the top tournaments and the top observers, a lot of them will realize this is happening and they will start to observe the other team. Because normally it is going to be the crowd cheating actively for one team, right? So the best thing to do here is you just start observing the Furia players way, way more. Because then the Falcons players aren't really going to be able to get that advantage. Because if you're observing from the Furia side, the crowd aren't going to know when there's someone in the crosshair, right?
Bomb side at the moment. Kickstand jiggling for information.
You can see here, they do indeed turn off the X-ray, knowing that he's about to peak.
He's out of utility. Well, 40 seconds. Gets flashed in. There's no...
And a few people still try and do the old cheering, but you know, is what it is. I also want to show like the amount of examples of this. Here's one from Olaf, like 7 years ago. Again, he's clearly actively doing it. And again, like at the time, using crowds, you know, that's experience. Like mixed reactions. I think a lot of people are kind of saying like, oh, it's an old technique. Like it's kind of cool. Like, yeah, they're not really like that bothered about it at the time. It was maybe like some people saying they're a bit bothered by it, but some people saying, oh, it just shows your experience, right? So kind of interesting on that front. You also had this one from Astralis. And again, like that one, I think it's pretty similar actually to the Falcons one, except again, it's maybe arguably a slightly more important round because he's keeping on looking back and then looking away. You could argue the first time when he looks there, he's looking to actually try and clear it. You know, I get that. But yeah, like people here are saying time to do something about this, but it's generally just people talking about the crowd more than anything, right? In all these cases in the past, I feel like it's more so people talking about the crowd being the problem. But for some reason in this case, everyone has decided it's Falcons being the problem, right? And even, this was the Paris Major, the crowd got warned for cheating in the halftime. Like, Banks had to come on stage and tell them, right? And it turned into this weird scenario where actually some of the crowd started shushing to stop people from speaking in those moments. Like, it turned into this really weird scenario, right? And then we have this take here, which got massively popularized. Crowd cheating is one thing. Players enticing the crowd into cheating for them by wiggling their crosshair into smokes or walls is significantly worse and should be punished severely. Disgraceful behavior. I think firstly, I've already shown this is not something that is clearly like commonly accepted or understood as a rule by the pros. Lots of pros are doing it. There's way more examples than that, by the way. Nico's done it recently. Carrigan's done it recently. So many players have done it recently. But the Rain one was the most recent one I could think of where the sentiment was obvious in the comments, right? So if you want to do this, sure, but you need to establish this as a thing in the first place before we start getting so aggressively against these players, because at the end of the day, they are competitors and they are going to like try and do what they can to win in the circumstances they are given, right? I actually had it before. I was playing on a LAN and I could hear the commentator literally saying that the guy was sticking the defuse, right? And I was the T who had planted the bomb, and I knew that I wasn't really planning on peeking in this 1v1, but I heard the commentator say he's sticking it. And then I have to like make a moral judgment in that moment of, is it morally right for me to peek or not? And it's like, I don't know. I don't know what to do in that moment. I think I just hesitated so long that I didn't actually even peek and I lost the round, which my teammates were mad at me at. But anyway, that's a thing that can happen, right? And that's the other thing. It's not like it's always going to be premeditated from these players. Like, Kicksam might have just never thought about this and then got into the game and been like, oh, well, I guess I just have to use this to my advantage, right? He's not a super experienced player. And again, I think the main thing is just that there's been no precedent set about this. So what could happen? Well, firstly, I think the players could decide amongst themselves whether they think this is something that needs to be like challenged or not. We've had it in the past, right? You guys might remember there was the major where Big were abusing this bug that meant that they could jump over like boxes and see people, and they wouldn't be able to be shot. Basically, the way the hitboxes worked, their head would like be visible, but you couldn't hit this bit of them. So they would just literally see you over the top of stuff. And just all the teams came together and they had a gentleman's agreement that we should not use this. And Big stopped using it, right? And that's an example where they had an advantage because they kind of like had used this in practice more than other teams. But they clearly realized, okay, this actually isn't right. Let's stop using it. So we could have that happen, right? Even then, I think the issue you have, and the problem with this take, and a lot of people saying there should be a rule against this, is that I don't think it's that easy to implement. I don't think it works like that, right? Like this Kicksam clip, for example. You know what he could just do instead? Oh, the kit player. Instead of wiggling, you know what he might do? He might just like pretend he's looking away from the angle, flick away, flick back, and then leave his crosshair on the slightly different angle. And you can't prove that he's not just flicking back to that angle because he's just swiping his mouse back at a slightly different amount, right? And then his crosshair just ends up on the spot where the player is for a bit, and then the crowd might make noise. And at that point, it's going to become really, really sticky, right? It's going to become really, really difficult to know which ones are actively crowd cheating and which are not. And furthermore, it still doesn't solve the big problem of if you were just holding a smoke and someone appears behind it and the crowd makes noise, right? That could be a player who's not actively trying to gain an advantage, but again, it's on the crowd, right? So for me, I don't think this is on the players that much, especially when there's not really a rule established right now. And here's the other one, right? If you don't believe me on the swiping away and swiping back thing, which definitely could happen, like instead of Kicksam jiggling here, he could just swipe away, swipe back. Oh, I've ended up on this angle. Let's see if someone's here, and then flick over. Or he could have just genuinely flicked back and accidentally ended up there, right? That's a very real possibility. The other one is, if you old school boys remember, if you remember Dan M from back in the day, crisp clean lock boys. This is a guy that was convinced that like every pro was cheating, basically. I think he was having a bit of fun with his videos as well. But this is one of Stewie, and this is an example of Stewie apparently genuinely having this thing where when he was playing, he would just shake his mouse around sometimes to keep himself focused. There's no logical reason behind it. It's just something that he did, right? And look at this and tell me that you would be able to like distinguish this between what Kicksam was doing.
Because when he does stuff like this, you cannot say like, why are you doing that? It doesn't make any sense. Because he's just going to say, oh, it's just what I do to stay focused. And that's why it's...
Like, if he's a bit higher there and he's looking at people through the wall, it's like, maybe that's just like actually the way he plays, right? And you can't really prove that intent. And that's what makes this so like awkward to me. Okay. So the main thing I want to say is I'm someone who like so strongly believes in like fairness in all situations. And I just feel like the way Falcons are being treated here is not fair at all. Keep the same energy for everyone. Okay. Falcons here. Yes, the crowd was being very, very annoying, but they can't do anything about that. And We've seen so many pros do this wiggling thing in the past, and no one has ever really said anything this negative about it. But suddenly when Falcons do it, and suddenly when the crowd are so egregious with it, it's this perfect concoction that everyone decides that this was always something that was hated, and this was always something that was bad, and it was always cheating. When we could see, this is the perfect example for me of everyone literally 7 months ago downvoting this guy for saying it's cheats. And now, later, everyone is saying, oh, it's cheats. They're straight up cheating, right? Like, clearly this is not something that we are all in agreement on, okay? And there has not been a rule, and there has not been that made that Falcons would know, okay? So let's all calm it down. I also want to say this is taken away, sadly, from the final, which I think I'll talk about tomorrow, because I think Furia are probably one of the most fun teams to watch in CS right now. I love what those guys are doing. But that'll be a video for tomorrow. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll catch you next time.